All right, moving on to number 13. We're at the top 13 here, guys. Let's do this. Number 13 of Film Villain's 31 greatest horror movies of all time. It is Black Christmas.
Yeah. I think Black Christmas is arguably better than Halloween. I'm gonna say it. Yeah.
Really?
You know what?
I go back and forth, but for the most part, because I just love the movie so much, it's one of my favorites. I tend to lean like, I think it's better. There's a lot of aspects to it.
It definitely influenced it.
We don't have enough time to go into that, but
yeah. It was an influence. I mean, like besides Peeping Tom in this movie were like probably the POV shots really influenced.
You're just trying to be classy and bringing Peeping Tom into this whole thing. Come on.
You know, I feel like this is the first time I'm surprised on the list.
Really?
I wouldn't think this would have made it to the top 31, and it's a great movie, but it's not one that I feel like everybody loves, like The Lost Boys or Poltergeist.
I think it's because because of the season and everything else. You don't probably think about Black Christmas being one of the greatest horror movies because you watch it more. If you're going to watch it, you're going to watch it more towards Christmas.
No, because
it's Halloween season.
But
it absolutely is.
Spooky Dan's favorite Christmas horror movie is Sleigh Bells. It just happens to be on his list, too.
I actually had this, I think 12th? No, I'm sorry. It was like 16th on my list. But
wow. Very high on mine, too.
Yeah, it was super high on mine. And I mean, Bob Clark, for a guy that kind of like left horror and became a journeyman who just did comedy, he did drama, he did action, did everything. I mean, my God, the first 3 things that he did basically were horror movies, and he was so good at it. He was so good at it. Black Christmas.
But that's the thing about Bob Clark. He was so good at so many genres. He made classics in the horror genre, the comedy genre, and the family genre.
Yep, and he made a Sherlock Holmes. He made a Sherlock Holmes movie.
That's you see that within Black Christmas. You see that balance. I think Dave, you were talking about that before. The balance, like having the humor in the horror, and it all fits just perfectly.
And he had that good 10-year run with Porky's and Christmas Story. It's just a wild run. But I got to work on his last movie. I didn't even know it was him until I got to set. And I didn't even know he was directing the movie. I was just kind of in transpo, and I found Ralph Konevsky shows up on set. This is probably like 20 years ago, maybe a few months before Bob Clark got into that car accident. Ralph Konevsky shows up. I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? He was like, I wrote the movie, and I'm here to collect my money. You know, but these motherfuckers didn't tell me they were filming my script, and so.
He was there to meet Bob Clark.
And he was like, dude, probably there too. And he was like, yo, Bob Clark is directing. I'm like, no fucking way. So I got to meet his son and talk to his AD who worked on all the movies with him from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things On. So it was but I never got to meet Bob Clark. So either way.
I know we're past the time, but a real quick Bob Clark story. He showed up to the set of Grace, Paul Solit's short movie before he made it into a feature.
Really?
And so we're all going... The Icons of Fright guys found him and invited him in. And so he was just there to say hi. And he had no idea until that moment. And gosh, this has to be like 2005, 6. He had no idea that horror fans really loved his shit. And shortly after that, he started doing conventions and meeting people. And then, because he was at sort of a lull in his career at that point. And suddenly he was like, he had this new zest for life because the horror fans were like, are you nuts? We all fucking love you. This is great. So it was really cool being around him when that moment was happening for him. It was really awesome.
Yeah, I saw him in 2006 at the New Art, and they screened Black Christmas, and he did a great Q&A and talked about all the, just how they made it, everything. And then they even talked about Carpenter, because somebody brought up, they said, hey, did Carpenter, what's going on with that? Was Halloween your movie? He's like, no, that was John's movie, and John did it the way he wanted to do it. But he was just delightful. It was great. So I'd never forget that.
He was a great guy.
All right. It's a great movie to see in the theater, but what is also a great movie to see in the theater is